Hey, Matt here. Today I'm going to be making another GTO Trainer video. I polled the community to see what spot you wanted to go over next. I'm happy you picked the 150 big blinds through red pot out of position as the next spot, as it's a bit of a follow-up to the last video, which was 200 big blinds through red pots out of position. Now, if you watched the last video, you should remember that one of the takeaways was we did a lot of small betting on the flop instead of betting big on boards which would be bet big at 100 big blinds. So I'm curious to see if that trend continues at 150 or if at this stack depth we can still just bet big. All right, let's begin with the first hand. A7 here, small blind versus button. We're going to start here, and then if we have time, we'll do small blind versus MP. And maybe in future videos we can actually do the big blind versus button in MP, because I think that changes quite a bit actually, because you're through betting more of a polarized range, where here you're through betting more of a linear range, so that does change how you play. But for now, small blind versus button. On this board, I think you could do a bunch of things. I mean, some people just bet range, but I actually think you could actually mix, maybe even potentially between a big size and check, or even a small size and check. And now that we're 150 deep, I actually like checking, although we did roll a 56. So how I would play this is, in my mind, based on the last video, I think it's going to be small bet and check, not betting everything. And on a 56, you could probably go either way, but I'm going to lean towards actually checking. So let's take a look. So that seems to be the case. Now let's take a look at the strategy overall. So it is actually pretty much small bet or check. You could use a bigger size, and A7 here is kind of just, can do whatever. So it's a good start. I think we have nothing to do but pure call here. 6 is an interesting card. I wonder if we could actually do some leading, but I won't. I guess none. And now that goes check, check. The question is, do we ever get any thin value from anything? Maybe there are some kings, like maybe like king, queen or something. But I think in general, check and bluff catch is probably the play. So I'll just check. And I'm probably going to just pure check this, honestly. That's interesting. We actually could bet big, so I was way off here. What I would like to do, and I don't know if it's easy to do this on the trainer, like if I click this, will it screw things up? But what I would like to actually go back to this node. Yeah, it sucks because we're in learning mode. What I would like to do is actually see the range. I mean, I suppose I could, when we get to here. Well, I decided to check, even though that's incorrect. I guess we can actually just look at the ranges. Maybe that would be the easiest thing to do. That way we can see what hands are betting huge on the flop, and I guess king, queen is in there at a reasonable frequency. This height, I guess, is the frequency, and even some king 10, king 9. So I guess there are just so many kings, and the ace x obviously chops. I'm surprised that there's even some jack x here. Actually, you know what I could do, and I didn't even realize that, is I can hit this, study this spot, and I can actually see. I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier. So yeah, king, queen's in there, some ace x. And then what's interesting, though, is when button checks back, I assume that they're not checking back a lot. Yeah, I mean, they're betting a lot, 70%. So it is kind of weird when we get to this river, right? But I suppose just, you can see A7, so it's 90% equity there. It's interesting, so let's close that. Yeah, I totally forgot I could hit this study this spot. So, one mistake there. But I think in these videos, since we don't have that much time, I think I really want to focus mainly on the flop c-betting strategy, because I think that's going to be the most helpful. this board I think is pretty much the same as what we had before, and the question is, do we want to bet this on the 7? I guess we'll check. Yeah, that's just how I'll play, and I think with my range, again, the question is probably small bet and check. Not betting everything is probably going to be the play. Yeah. So some betting, let's take a look. Again, mostly small bet and check, and this one can kind of do whatever. It's actually, well, yeah, it's probably bet about what I thought. Check, check. I'm guessing just pure check here. Probably checking a ton. This is making some mistakes again. Interesting. I don't really have a lot to say on that right now, but betting small makes sense if I want to bet, and I guess when in position checks back, even our sets and 2 pair are still fine to bet small, so that's interesting. This is fold now. Some raising, interesting. Definitely not finding that. Okay, so this is a board where I would definitely bet big or check if it was 100 big blinds. So I'm going to guess I'm allowed to still do that at 150, but if it's just small bet, it wouldn't surprise me, but I'm going to pick the bet medium, and it mostly is. As you can see, it's still a lot of small betting. It really is, but maybe there could be some bigger betting. So that's interesting to note. So it seems like we're kind of on that threshold where it's a stack depth where it doesn't really know what it wants to do. It really is in the middle. I don't know how to really describe that right now, but and see what's interesting here. I'm guessing we're just gonna bet again like a medium size. I don't think we want to shove with the spade. If we're 100 big blinds, maybe we would, but being 150, I'm gonna guess we're not. And 64, I will bet. It could be a check raise as an option here, but I think 64 are better off just betting ourselves. And yeah, it's kind of close. Looks like there still can actually be shoves at 150. So that's an interesting takeaway. I know it's not the flop, but on the turn, when it's like this double flush draw, not really any 2 pairs of straights, you can shove at 100, and it looks like you can still probably do that at 152. But we'll pay attention to that in future boards. And spade getting there is bad. Also with the king queen, I feel like in these spots, the trainer still just shoves. I'm not happy about it. Like, what am I going to do? Check fold? That personally, that's probably what I would do in game. We do have the 10% option, so honestly, I feel like that's probably the best play. So let's go 10%. And yeah, makes sense. All the overpairs. And if it was to shove on us, I won't look at it, but I'm curious. What do you think we would do? Okay, 954, again, this would be a board that I bet bigger check at 100. The question is, do we still do that at 150, and what do we want to do with this hand? I think this hand is a neat hand to fit in the check range, but it could also be bet. Like, it does benefit some from protection on the overcards. But yeah, on the 23, I'm just going to check. And yeah, that's that. I guess I forgot to say what would my range want to do. And what's interesting is on this board, so it's like the lower board, not so much those middle ones. It does prefer to the better big, and you could even bet even bigger than that by the looks of it. So it's something to note. I always struggle in these spots. I think we block a lot. The question is, does this really make sense with this hand? I guess so. And then we rolled high, so why not? And I think mostly blocking my range, I think. Yeah. Interesting. Betting big mostly with the range. I guess the 10-9. I guess if we bet small, most of these are just going to call again. And if we think about our range, which is over pairs, they don't really want to bet small. So yeah, actually, you know what? This is probably a mistake. When I think about, okay, what are the range that I'm trying to bet and what am I targeting, betting big just actually makes sense. I don't know why betting small, what do we really accomplish here? I guess I figured I would potentially get more folds, but I bet you, and we could just look at the solution here. So if we bet small, probably there's like no fold. It's like 18%, yeah. So this usually the betting small will be used when you get more folds, but there's just not going to be many. Sure, we get some ace high, but nothing else folds, so what's the point? I'm sure it's actually probably plus EV to bet small. I mean, it bets big sometimes, right? So it's just there's a better option. Probably bet small or check. Again on this board. 40 can probably go either way. But one of the things I like to think about is the hands that I want to check. Am I able to check call? And if the answer is no, generally I prefer betting with those hands. So I think I'm going to majority bet this. So even on the 40, I think that's enough for making me want to bet it. Yeah. But there was some checks. And the raise, I guess call, but it kind of sucks because we're not really drawing to the nuts, but I don't think we could fold. And it looks like we actually just folded it away. Interesting. Yeah, the only eights that call are the ones that have the pair with it. That you can call then. I was going to say, I called the queen, which is there's only ace queen, but okay. Yeah, now we're in a non-move, so. Okay. I would bet bigger check. 100 big blinds, I would totally do that. Here, I'm honestly not sure. It is lower, similar to the, which was the hand there, the 9-5-4. Although, it's slightly different as there's a lot more draws here. Actually, is there more draws? I think so. Yeah, there's for sure. What am I talking about? I was thinking, there's like ace deuce 8-3. That's not there, but there's 5-4, 9-8, 8-7. Maybe it's actually similar. Anyways, I think I would bet big still with this hand, although we roll 15, so I guess we're checking. But I think it's going to be a bit bigger check on this board with a lot of draws. Oops. I forgot to see how our page plays. Sorry, so we check, and again, it's interesting. We're betting small. I mean, a lot of these sizes are used, but that small size is still there. Why do we think that is? Do we think it's just because in position, like what makes this board different than the 9-5-4? Maybe this one will be the last one, and then we'll switch to MP. But let's take a look on this 9-5-4. We can use the ranges, and we can, kind of compare this. So if we go to the flop, sorry. It's really tough to say. It's pretty close. I'm trying to see this hand. It looks like there's a larger gap between this part of the range that just, I guess, it's not strong enough to bet big and just prefers to bet small. Or this one, there is a gap, but it's not as wide. I mean, I shouldn't say it's actually mostly here. I mean, it is. There's the gap here, right? Where this one's mostly the gap. There's not as much in this one. So betting big's better because you get advantage of this part of the range. Honestly, I'm not really sure. If anybody has some ideas, I'd appreciate it in the comments. All right, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to do small blind versus MP, and then we'll do that for another 10-15 minutes. Bet smaller check, I think pretty much always bet. There's some checks. Pretty much I'm going to assume small blind versus MP is going to have way more small betting than it does versus button. Interesting. This concept from Goose Core, where you kind of like want to mirror your hand. So like if you had Jack X, you're mainly checking. So I wonder if like this is just checking. The question is, how do we get the most money versus a queen? We could just bet. The 6 is putting the money in anyways. So the question is, more profitable to check or bet ourselves? I would actually assume in practice probably just bet. But since we rolled low and mirroring the Jack, I think this will be checked at least sometime. So yeah, it's actually checked majority. Be curious if he bets, or if the trainer bets, then what? And I think now we just shove. There's some merit in checking, maybe. Oh, actually shove. We're 150 deep. Now this actually, yeah, this is interesting. Check raise. Queen should always bet, right? So realistically, we're probably going to get most of our value from the check raise. So rolling low, I'm going to play that. I'm going to play the check raise. Yeah. And there are like some checks because I don't want to get check raised, or sorry, some bluffs that don't want to get check raised on the turn. They're going to check back, and then now they'll turn those into bluffs. And then I guess now the question is, what's raise size we use? I'm just going to shove because we have the nuts. So it seems to be good. It's not ace 10. We probably want to check a lot here, I would assume. 88 will bet, and I think it's just going to bet small or check. So I guess on the 88 we'll bet. But checking a decent amount, bet small and check. Makes sense. I would bet bigger check, 100 big blinds. The question is, what do we do? 150. Yeah, let's play it the same way. See what happens, just for fun. I bet bigger check. And yeah. But what's interesting is just so much betting small. I don't know if that's... Well, let me pause the video. Let me pull up this spot specifically, 100 big blinds, and we could just see. Yeah, so you can see this more bigger betting at 100 versus 150, but you're betting more small size. For what it's worth, I use the simple one just to keep it consistent, because that's what we're using. We're using the 150 simple. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Flush gets there, could bet small, but we're way deeper. Do we want to use the Queen X of spade as a bluff? I think so. And not having the heart is pretty good. Even on 37, this is probably going to be one of our better bluffs, I would assume. So let's do that. It looks like you can even actually bet bigger. It's kind of a mix there. But yeah, okay. We get raised. I suppose we just fold, even though we have the Queen of Spades. It's a paired board. And yeah, I think we just actually just fold. Yeah. Okay. Again, I would bet bigger check. The question is, do we do the same here at 150? I'd say yes. It's happening too, so let's do it. And it's actually way more still betting small than I would have thought, but betting medium is fine. I mean, how do you interpret that? I think it's mostly check, and especially in the 19. Just fold. Yeah, I don't really know how to interpret that. Like, obviously betting small's okay too. Betting medium's okay, but why? It's really the main thing I'm trying to figure out. Is why the strategy is that the way that it is, more so than memorizing the actual strategy. Oops. because obviously these sims depend on the parameters that GTO Wizard gives it, right? So it's not technically GTO. So if we understand the reasons why, then it could better help us in game as we're kind of making up our strategy on the fly. So lots of draws here. Again, if it was 150 or 100, I would just bet bigger check. Question is, what do we do now? We're at 150. And to be fair, we don't really have... I guess 5 would be the nuts. But we did roll a 2. I don't hate just like checking this sometimes, so let's check. Yeah. And what do we do here? So, again, mostly bet small and check. It's weird. Do you think it has something to do with nuts over time? Or that's another goose core concept. It was similar to the, I think it was 10-6-3. When it was small blind versus button. If the nuts is going to change a lot over time, maybe that's where we want to bet small. And when there's not as many draws, is when we could potentially bet bigger. Maybe that's just something to think about. I don't know if that's true, but it's just something that's coming to my head. Maybe that's why at 200 big blinds, there are a lot of small betting as well. Maybe it's for that reason. So check. 100 big blinds, usually when the flush comes in, you still want to play pretty passive. I'm going to assume we still want to play passive even though we have the double cutter. Although we rolled the 99, so you know what, maybe we'll bet. Let's bet small. Because we want to have some bluffs in case like a spade comes, and we need some bluffs. So if we only bluff spades and spade comes, we have no bluffs, right? So, and betting small check makes sense. Raised, I guess, just fold. Ace king. I would just bet my range on this board, and I feel like we could still do that. Even with jacks, that requires pretty much no protection. We probably just get so many folds it makes it worth it, so let's do that. And that's the case. Hopefully it just folds so we can go to the next one. And I would just check. And probably fold because we do block some bluffs, and we basically already have a pure bluff catcher, so on the roll low, we'll just fold it away. Cool. You could even bet bigger at 100, but I'm guessing now we just bet smaller check. Lots of straight draws. Board can change. Let's see if that theory holds true. 85 will bet. And lots of small betting, no big betting. So I wonder if that actually is a thing. We did roll high. The question is, do we want to bet big or do we want to bet small? This is tough. Decided I'm going to bluff, but the question is the size. 4 is obviously good, but it's also kind of good for us too. 8, 7's, I mean, obviously in position we'll have more, but it's not like it's that bad. The question is, what do we want to do if we had ace king or aces? Do we want to bet big or bet small? I'm going to go with small, but I'm not sure. That's interesting. So this card is basically not bluffed, and with our range we can actually bet medium, and ace king kind of there. Interesting. So it's kind of a tip I learned. I kind of actually came up with this. Well, I never heard anybody explain it in this way, but it makes sense for me. Is when we think about if we want to bet or not, we need to think about how much of a checking range do we want to have. And if we want to have a big checking range, that means we need to lower the frequency down of our value. And if we lower the frequency down of our value, it means we can have less bluffs. And when we have less bluffs, then we usually pick the better ones before the weaker ones. And I guess this is like a good candidate, but when we're not betting this much, we just have way better candidates to use as bluffs instead. It's interesting, like it just prefers these ones. Ace 8, Ace 7. It's kind of probably one of those mergey ones. Where like if it bets, it gets these to fold maybe, but also gets value. And yeah, it's a weird situation. It's interesting that it's not bet small. And then now we get this. And I feel like we would have to bluff. It looks like we just shove. It was kind of a non-spot, so probably just bet small ton. Yep. We'll do one more after this and we'll wrap it up. And I'm guessing check mostly. Bet small if we bet, but we probably don't bet much. Just call 181. Yeah, looks like it's pure call. Wow, no one does. All right, let's do one more. So on this board, it's a little bit different. Now that it's rainbow, it's less likely to change. Not as many straight draws. I wonder if this is just like actually a bet bigger check, similar to what it would be at 100. It's definitely more betting big, but you can also still bet small, so that's interesting. I wonder if that heuristic's going to hold true. And on the 2, is King 10 strong enough to bet? I don't think it is. I'm actually a pure check, or mostly check. Looks like you can still bet, but it's starting to get close. King 10, Ace 10 is very close. And I'm guessing just call versus raise because it's MP. Yeah, could raise, but it's very low frequency. Interesting, he wants to just shove that. Oh, yeah. On the 25, I guess we fold, but I feel like we'd have to actually call it sometimes. We kind of unblock bluffs, and yeah. It's hard to think of a better hand I would rather have, but I think on the 25 we'll fold, but yeah. Could be called sometimes. That's kind of what we thought. Some 10s you'll call. Likes jacks. Interesting. All right, let's stop the trainer and let's write a summary of what we potentially learned. Okay, so in this short session, this is what I kind of came up with. So similar to 200 big blinds, there's a lot of small betting. We did see that. And again, this will take more research, but I think there might be something to nuts over time or how many draws there are on the flop. If there's less draws, like something like rainbow or less straight draws, maybe you can't actually just start betting big. But when we're playing deeper and there are a lot of potentially board-changing turns and rivers, maybe we just can't put in that much money right away, and we actually prefer small betting, at least out of position, maybe in position that's different, but that's something we can look at later. So that's my brief summary. As always, if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below if you found any heuristics that I might have missed or you see some flaws in my thought process. Let me know in the comments. It's how I learn. And I hope you enjoyed it. And if you would like to see another spot, also let me know in the comments. All right, until next time, good luck at the tables.